We go.
Okay, good. Well, welcome everybody to the ICT Educator webinar series. I'm Steve Wright. I'm the statewide director for the California Community College ICT sector team. And if you visit our website, you can see all these fine people that we have working throughout the state of California as regional directors, as well as our staff, and Nicole Sherman in the bottom right there, who's the producer of this series. We wouldn't be here without her. Also on our website, you see all our statewide materials and pathways information, and including the archives of prior webinars. We've done over between 20 and 30 so far in all these different topic areas, and each one is video recorded, chapterized in video, transcripted along with a PowerPoint presentation materials, which is very useful for faculty as a resource for class, for grant writing, and further research. And coming up in the near future after today, we're going to be taking a look at the CAE cybersecurity designation, what it takes to get a college to be qualified that way. We have several that have made it now in California over the last 2 years, about a 200% increase for us, and that's great. And then we're going to be taking a look at some independent research that has been done on which community colleges are having the highest cohort success rate in computer science transfers to CSUs, and what are their best practices? How are they doing it? That'll be a very interesting one on March 6th. But for today, we have the Google IT certificate program. I think this is just fantastic. I heard Mara do this presentation with Kate, I believe it, at the ICT Winter Conference, and I just knew we had to get it on here because the Google IT certification or certificate process, I'm really not sure which word to use, has opened up a new look of using branding of a major company and a very accessible type program that appeals across the board to a lot of people. And it's very important. I think we take a good look at it and see how we can incorporate it. And so Mara from JFF and Ricky from Google will be talking to us today about that. And that's enough out of me. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Go ahead and tell us what you got going. I've looked at the slide deck. It's fantastic.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. I just wanted to say hello to everyone on the call today. It's so good to see such a diverse turnout of folks. And I know some of you have reached out to us prior to this webinar about information on the Google IT Cert. And so we're happy to be bringing this to you all today. Just so you all know a little bit of what we're planning to share with you today. We've got some slides just around the context for the Google IT Cert, how it fits into the IT ecosystem as we're thinking about it, both at JFF and from the perspective of Google. We've got Ricky on the line with us today from the Grow with Google initiative, and she's gonna share some of the background on the Google IT Cert. And we're going to talk a little bit around what we've learned from the first year of implementing this cert as part of a pilot project, and the different types of models that we're seeing colleges start to explore as they are piloting this cert across the country. And then, of course, how folks might be if folks are interested in getting more involved, how they can kind of reach out to us and find out more information and get involved in the current cohort that we've got running right now. So hopefully there'll be some time at the end for some Q&A. And we also have kind of a virtual office hour plan in about 2 weeks' time. So if folks don't get all their questions answered, or if you go back to your campus and you talk to your colleagues and you have new questions, you can come join us in 2 weeks, and we'll be hosting another kind of virtual office hours for folks who want to follow up with more questions. So that's our plan. Trying to get through a lot here, but I'll turn it over to Ricky if she wants to introduce herself, say hello.
Hi everyone, I'm Ricky Meyer from the Google team. Apologies for the brief technical issue that just happened. For some reason, my screen just went black. Sorry about that. I'm getting the slides back up so you can all see them. I am on the Grow with Google team, and I will tell you more about that shortly. And I work specifically on the IT certificates, and we will be getting into that in just a few minutes. So just give me 1 second to share the slides again, and we will be up and running. All right, can everyone see this now?
Yes.
All right, this should be full screen now.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do in just kind of framing the start of our conversation around, what is the Google IT Cert and how you all might be thinking about it, and it's certainly how we're thinking about it, is fitting in within this larger context of the IT ecosystem that's evolving in the state of California as it pertains to the future of work. So Ricky, do you want to move us ahead? Right. So these are some of the themes that we see as emerging in the future of work writ large, that the Google IT Cert, as well as the colleges and as well as the other players that are in our ecosystem that we'll talk more about later, are all grappling with as we are working to prepare learners for jobs that are going to pay living wages and are going to be able to sustain them and their families. So we're all, already dealing with AI and automation. There's also themes, employment status and shifts that are happening related to that. The nature of work, here in terms of wrestling with not only the gig economy, which we talk a lot about, but just the ways in which folks are continuously needing to change in order to adapt to the shifts that are happening related to their industries. And of course, this is all predicated on the acceleration of the change that is happening. There's always been shifts in work. There's always been changes that folks have to adapt to, but the technology and the nature of our lives in society now means that it's all accelerating at a pace that is really demanding us pivot in different and new ways. Thanks, Ricky, if you want to go. Yeah, we just have a couple slides here with some information that we found compelling related to the future of work. This graphic was developed by Heather McGowan, who's a leading futurist in the US, and just looking at, the market supply of undergraduates versus the demand that we're seeing. It's becoming increasingly important to have a BA, but also other types of certificates and post-secondary credentials that are gonna help folks attain the jobs that we see coming as the future of work is upon us. Great, next slide, Ricky. The additional challenge here, not only in kind of supporting post-secondary credentials and BA attainment, is really getting that education and career alignment solid. So this data is a few years old, but I still think resonates in that the ways in which college academic officers consider their graduates prepared doesn't always align with what our business leaders are saying are the skills that they need. And part of that solution is really bringing employers and educators together in authentic ways in order to ensure that our learners are graduating with the skills that are going to get them those jobs. And that's one reason that we're really excited to have Google participating in the higher ed space through this Google IT certificate. Great, thank you, Ricky. This is a quote that I like, again, by another futurist, but it's just as you can see here, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. For some of you, I'm sure you may have heard before that the first person to live to be 150 years old has already been born. It means that folks are going to have a working life of 80 to 100 years, and 2 years or 4 years of education at the start of that career is just not going to be enough. And so we're really really interested in the ways in which we can support our communities in this idea of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And the community colleges are absolutely like the foundational vehicle for that to be happening in California. Great. And so these are just, some of the things that we're seeing, we're excited about. This is not by any means, inclusive of all the different things that are happening out there, but this idea of continuous learning or lifelong learning that some of you have heard of with the Google IT Cert, as you'll learn about, it's not only for entry-level folks who are coming out of high school into the college space, but it's for folks who might be pivoting in their careers, or for people who are currently in the workforce who want to upskill. So we're looking at that continuous learning. What are the new credentialing systems that are going to support this future of work, and what are the exciting and promising industry and education partnerships that are really going to ensure that our learners are getting the skills, the upskilling, the reskilling that they need to succeed. So little bit of framing for us there. I'm gonna turn it over to Ricky now to talk a little bit more specifically around how the Google IT Cert fits into this ecosystem.
Sure. So in looking at the ecosystem that Mara was just talking about, so we have learners, we have educational institutions, and we also have industry. So the slide that's up on the screen just shows really a broad overview of how we approach this work. So from the learner perspective, there are Google.org scholarships for veterans, refugees, and low-income learners at community colleges and leading nonprofits. There's grant support that also includes overhead and wraparound supports. This slide's slightly outdated. There are actually 40 community colleges that currently teach the certificate. I'll get into that a bit later. There's ACE accreditation for 12 units of credit, and there is a whole variety of implementation models that we'll be discussing as well. And then on the industry side, we do a lot of work through our hiring consortium to work with national employers to consider learners who go through the certificate for entry-level IT jobs that they have at their companies. So again, more to come. This is just a very brief overview. And then here, this slide just shows one pathway of what a student might or a learner might accomplish through the IT certificate. So you start with the certificate, you complete the certificate, you can go through the CompTIA exams, which likely are already offered at many of your schools. There's a co-skilled badge between Google and CompTIA that, again, I'll talk about in a little bit later. Then there's the option for ACE credit and then landing a job in IT. So this is one pathway. Of course, every learner has their own journey, but this is one way that you could potentially map it out. And again, I'll be talking more about the hiring consortium later, but here are some of the companies that have signed on and have agreed to really take a first look at completers from this program for their entry-level IT jobs. All right. With that, I want to get into the certificate itself and how it works and what it looks like. So the certificate arose really from Google's own needs and struggles for finding qualified candidates in what we call here Tech Stop, which is really a beloved service that provides the same kind of help desk IT support you'd find at somewhere like Geek Squad or any tech office, tech desk in any office. Google had a really hard time finding candidates for these roles, and through the process realized that someone who's qualified did not have to have a 4-year college degree. So once we had that finding, we partnered with a nonprofit organization called Year Up, which some of you might be familiar with. It focuses really on low-income young adults and builds a training and hiring pathway into IT support. And that's what we used here at Google to start filling these roles. Our program creators work with Year Up and other job training programs, took this internal IT function really from a nominal amount of diversity, so around 13%, to 62% diverse talent in IT support roles. And this focus on inclusion and finding alternative pathways to bring talent into Google really set the stage for this IT support certificate that we're talking about today. We also learned through the process that IT support is a teachable field, and that informed a lot of how the program was designed. So let's take a step back and just look at the numbers in the landscape. So there's an expected 10% growth, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in the IT support field between 2018 and 2028. The current median salary for IT support roles is just over $53,000, and there are 215,000 open IT support roles in the US. All right. Moving along here, I want to give you a brief overview of the content that's offered in the certificate and then get into the design. So given the proof of concept that we had within Google that entry-level IT is a teachable skill, in January 2018, we launched an online curriculum to take beginner learners all the way through to job readiness in less than 6 months. The current average completion rate among completers is about 5.3 months. The content was developed exclusively by Google and is available on Coursera. It was also important to Google that we develop premium content to teach IT support fundamentals so that learners could, in fact, really go from no background in IT to being ready to land that entry-level job in less than 6 months. There are 5 courses that make up the certificate, and I've included the titles of them here. So there's Technical Support Fundamentals, The Bits and Bytes of Computer Networking, Operating Systems in You, Becoming a Power User, system administration and IT infrastructure services, and last but not least, IT security, defense against the digital dark arts. I also wanted to take a moment just to note how these courses map against the curriculum in the California system. So you can see on this slide that there are some courses highlighted. So that's where there's overlap here between the curriculum. So I think that's something to note, especially given the work that all of you are doing. So now getting into the approach that we've taken here with the Google IT Support Professional Certificate. So first, and possibly most importantly, but these are all important details. So the certificate is practice-based. It includes hands-on labs and interactive assignments through a proprietary software we have, which is called Quick Labs. And this enables learners to practice troubleshooting across various operating systems, really in a hands-on way. So using virtual machines, they can log into different operating systems and be able to test their learning from whatever device they have into others as well, because if you're going to be providing IT support, you need to be able to work with different operating systems. The content is industry relevant and is product and platform agnostic. So we do not teach Google specific products and services. And that's something I always like to emphasize when I'm talking about the certificate, because I think that's something that sets it apart. The certificate is philanthropically funded, so there's no revenue coming to Google from it. There is a coalition of employers that I mentioned that consider Cert completers for their open roles. We also have a specific focus on community colleges, which is why we're all here today. Research shows that 14% of community college students are homeless, 1 in 3 go hungry while pursuing a degree, and among many other reasons, this is a natural landing place for people who want to learn new skills, get into new fields, upskill, reskill, all of the above. There are also job supports built into the certificate itself. So there's a completer community that has job prep resources like Big Interview, which is interview prep, resume prep, and review, and also a job board. Again, I'll be mentioning that more later. And then it's also all about collaboration. So we work very closely with JFF, who's on the ground with the community colleges, helping figure out implementation models, getting everything up and running. And we also have a co-branded badge with CompTIA that I mentioned just briefly before. So if someone finishes the certificate and then they want to go on and take the CompTIA exams, there's currently a discount to take those exams. And then, as I mentioned before, if someone passes those exams, they'll get a co-branded badge that's combined Google and CompTIA. So given that I'm in the company of educators, I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about the design of the certificate itself, because there's really a lot of thought that went into making sure it was inclusive and therefore that it would reach and resonate with all different types of people. So the majority of the curriculum developers were female, which I think is important to note because especially now numbers are getting better, but females have been quite underrepresented in the IT space for quite some time. We have instructors throughout the certificate who appear on video and who went through the certificate themselves and are now working at Google. So those are what we could call proof sources that they went through and they were able to land that entry-level IT job. We also have assessments throughout, so learners can really practice what they're learning and not just read as if they were reading from a textbook, but put it into practice. And there are also machine learning prompts that empower learners to continue, and I'll show you an example of that in just a couple of slides. There was also an intentional design to use default pronouns, so they instead of he or she, to make it inclusive. There are animations and screensavers that feature all different types of people, including people with disabilities. There's resume and interview video series in the completer community, again, to help people really get as solid as they can in their skills to land that job. There was a lot of research that went into creating and designing this program to reach overlooked audiences. So some people use the term underrepresented, some people overlooked, but really make sure that people see themselves in the certificate as they're going through and identify with them and then have motivation to continue through. And there are also non-technical Googler vignettes sprinkled throughout. So hearing from Googlers about their experience, this includes someone who's been in the armed services, someone who's deaf. There's a whole variety of people, again, really trying to show the reach of the program. And this slide here just shows a variety of people. These are some of the course instructors who are all former IT support specialists. Something this slide demonstrates really is how important it was to our program creators that learners could see themselves in the instructor. So, for example, research shows that women who learn tech from women are 4 times more likely to pursue a technical career path. And as I mentioned before, diversity and inclusion really was considered in every part of course development. On this screen here, you can see an example of a machine learning prompt. So someone's going through and then they get this pop-up that says, heads up, this is a tough assignment. If you need guidance, you can click here. So these are throughout. Here's just one example. And upon completion, learners will get a credential, and this is just an example on this screen here. So now transitioning into impacts in learning. So as I mentioned before, this launched in January 2018, so it's been out for over a year now, and we've had over 111,000 enrollments, which we're really proud of because that means we're reaching people all over the country, all over the world in some cases as well, and really trying to find people where they are and give them the skills they need. We released back in October 2019 a 1-year impact study, and I wanted to share some of the key information that I think certainly resonates with me, but also gives a bit of a perspective on who some of these learners are. So 57% do not have a 4-year college degree. Approximately 40% are in the lowest income tertile, so that's less than 30,000 annual income. 20% are unemployed, 74% seeking work, and 60% identify as African American, Latino, female, or veteran. And then looking at overall impact, learners of this certificate have achieved 2.5 times the completion rate of comparable content on Coursera. This is important to note because it really demonstrates the drive of learners in addition to the targeted focus of the content to drive completion through things like the machine learning prompts and other means that we have throughout the course. The certificate has received 4.72 out of 5 average stars, which is higher than the average of 4.59. 84% of learners have reported positive career outcomes within 6 months. This includes getting a raise, finding a new job, or starting a new business, enhancing skills for a current role, or improving their ability to get a new job. And while this is a nice number, this is something we're always continuously trying to improve. So we really want to try to get that up. And I also want to mention that the certificate is currently active in 40 colleges across 8 states and will be in 100 by the end of 2020. So I mentioned before, also just briefly, the supports for really job readiness and being able to land that job when you complete the certificate. So a couple things I want to mention are the completer community. So that includes resume and interview prep, skill building through gaming, and also a job board. And the job board is actually going to be updated relatively soon, so it can be searched by location, job type, and all of that. There are also inspirational learner case studies in the completer community. And again, that's another motivation to keep learners going through the material and continuing towards completion. All community college learners get early access to the community, so they don't have to have completed. They can get access earlier on. And as community colleges, we also provide materials for you to help you in both attracting learners to the content, to the course, and also to help with forming relationships with employers, because as community colleges, it's likely that you already have relationships that have been built over time, but it's also worth noting that a lot of people who are in your communities likely want to stay in your community. So being able to connect with employers in your area who are hiring is really important. So I've listed here just a couple of examples. So a menu sign for the Career Services Office, a digital Google participating employer badge that employers can add to their websites or collateral. And then we also have various one-pagers, like an overview, also one that's focused on employers and what they can get out of joining. I want to just take, we're pretty good on time, so I want to just take a couple minutes to watch this video, because I think as wonderful as it is to talk about it and the content and the design and everything that's gone into it, there's really no substitute for hearing from a learner herself and what her experience was like. So I'm just going to play this and hope that everyone can hear it, and it's pretty short.
The most important thing about being a mother is leading by example. What do you do when you have nothing? A year ago, I found myself homeless with my daughters. The whole shelter experience for the kids, I kept telling them that we were just on vacation and waiting for the house to be ready. That's the worst thing I ever had to do. I grew up in the housing projects in East Nashville, so nobody ever talked about career paths. I didn't know what to do or where to go, but I kept saying, they're watching how you handle this. You have a serious example to set for these girls. Most people think that Goodwill is just a retail store, but it's so much more than that. While I was living at the shelter, I found out that Goodwill and Google actually have a program to provide IT training. The program is called the IT Support Professional Certificate. When I learned that I could get a scholarship through Goodwill, it was life-changing.
Chelsea is the kind of person Goodwill was designed to support. That's why, thanks to the assistance of Google.org, we started the Goodwill Digital Career Accelerator. Using tools and resources from Grow with Google, the Goodwill Digital Career Accelerator is focused on connecting more than 1 million people with the skills they need to advance in digital careers. The Google IT Support Professional Certificate was a great building block for this.
I joined the 4 a.m. club. I would get up while the girls were asleep, do my schoolwork. While I was studying, I learned that a Google representative was going to come and give a tech talk at Goodwill. I had to go.
Chelsea really stood out when I met her at the Goodwill event. So I asked her to send me a resume. During the interview process, Chelsea demonstrated not only the foundational technical knowledge that she developed, but her initiative. And that's exactly what we need for people that are working in our data centers. So we brought her on board.
I absolutely love my job. When I first got the job, my daughter, she was like, Mom, you got this job? That means we'll have a house forever.
The future of work is now, and it requires digital skills. In the year that we've been working with Google.org, we've seen more than 250,000 people build their digital skills.
A year ago, I wasn't sure where my life was going. I thought everything was falling apart. I feel hopeful about the future now. I want my daughters to know that they can achieve any goal that they can set for themselves. My goal is to be a developer. That's what I want to do. I've come this far. I plan to go to the stars. My name is Chelsea Rucker, and I'm a data center technician for Google.
Great. So really for us, the way to look at the certificate is really looking at the impact, not just the numbers. And I think Chelsea's story is a really great example of that. And for learners who complete the cert and get a new job, it truly is transformational to both their lives and careers. So now I'm going to launch into the community college delivery approaches. And this is really where working with JFF comes in. So JFF is on the ground with community colleges, figuring out the implementation model that works best for that college, given the learners and the community. So there are several options available, which is good because all communities are different. So some of the options are creating a non-credit standalone course, creating a credit-bearing course, or integrating the certificate content into existing courses. So that could be bundling certificate courses into a new sequence, dual enrollment, pre-apprenticeships. I was actually just talking a couple weeks ago with another community college who bundled some certificates together. So there's really a variety in how community colleges approach the delivery method based on what will be most enticing and impactful for the students in their community. Most of the work in pilot has been done on the non-credit side. Many choose that as a way for career advancement or training. And in some states, it's also being used for dislocated workers as well. And a couple notes on the credit courses for IT or related degrees. Integrating the content into credit-bearing courses that already exist that have CompTIA content is one way that some schools like to go about that. And then bundling certificate courses, some schools choose to do that over 1 or 2 semesters. This next slide lists all the current colleges where the certificate is being offered through JFF support. You can see there are currently 2 colleges in California, College of the Canyons and Las Positas. Currently in Colorado, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Texas, and Wisconsin. As I mentioned, we will be expanding to 100 community colleges in 15 states by the end of the year. So a few implementation findings to share with all of you. So completion rates are higher amongst the credit implementation models. There's a variety of reasons why that might be. One is that when there's credit involved, students might feel they have more skin in the game. That's just one possibility. There are many others. JFF really does a lot of work around metrics and evaluation, so that's where these findings come from. Students benefit when the certificate is offered with both academic and job supports available, and this refers to having a higher likelihood of finishing all courses. The completion rates tend to be higher when the certificate is part of an embedded course or program offering, and institutions are successfully positioning the certificate as an entry point into other programs of study. So, going forward. So in looking at JFF's work, we can think about it really in kind of 3 ways. So the first is preparing people for the future of work. So that's automation, outsourcing, and new contract arrangements require everyone to begin thinking and acting differently. Ensuring equity and economic advancement. And that's really referring to economic opportunity through education and dignified work, which is limited for millions of Americans, and also meeting employer needs. So employers struggling to find employees who have the right skills and being able to thrive in the work that they find. So we talked about the ecosystem at the beginning, and now looking at scaling the ecosystem, the 3 pieces that JFF is focusing on are growing the learner community. So that's expanding the nonprofit and community college presence, tripling the amount of colleges that are implementing the certificate. So again, I mentioned that there's currently 40 and we're scaling to 100, and increasing employer involvement and hiring. So now for getting involved, what does participation mean? So from the JFF side, JFF, through a grant from google.org, provides grants to community colleges to support program design. They also, through the grant from google.org, provide free access to Coursera for all enrolled learners for 12 months from launch. And JFF technical support includes coaching, custom resources, and webinars. Then in terms of the deliverables from each college or consortia, depending on how the state or group of colleges decides to pursue, there's completing an implementation plan, enrolling learners, supporting learner completion, supporting placement for completers, submitting monthly reports and qualitative learner case studies, and involving local employers in the efforts. So Mara's contact information is on the bottom here and also at the end, I believe. So before I end here and turn to questions, I just want to also mention the consortium approach, and any questions on this specifically will be best answered by Mara. But the way that JFF is approaching the consortium approach is there are 2 things. So a college can join either as a college on its own or as a consortium. So through the consortium approach, there's a lead college that invites and organizes other schools to be the participating colleges in that consortium. The lead college does the contracting with JFF, helps JFF set the funding formula, aggregates the technical assistance questions that come in, works closely with JFF, and coordinates convenings if that's something that makes sense. And then from the participating colleges side, those colleges have the responsibility for enrolling learners, supporting retention, completion, and placement, reporting monthly, and participating in TA coaching, webinars, and convenings. So in terms of next steps, we have some time now for Q&A, so I can answer anything that's relevant from the Google side, and anything that's really more specific for Mara from the JFF side. She has set up some office hours for Thursday, March 5th from 9 to 10 a.m. So feel free to contact her, sign up, and join those office hours. The WebEx is in the presentation here, so hopefully you all have a copy of that. And with that, I will remove my screen share and take any questions that anyone might have.
That's terrific. Thank you, Ricky and Mara. This is an excellent presentation. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. I have a couple to kick off right away. One is you mentioned that this was available through Coursera, and I believe when we chatted offline after the ICT Winter Conference, there's some question about whether that would be the continuing model in the future. And do you have other ways of providing the curriculum?
So currently it's offered on Coursera. So all the content is developed by Google. It's just hosted on Coursera. The licenses for the first 12 months are covered as part of the grant. So there's a whole fee structure. It's $49 a month per learner. There's also different fee structure depending on how many learners you have, but that's all included for the first 12 months of the rollout. And then beyond that, there are opportunities to think creatively about how to work with other agencies and things like the workforce development boards that might be in your community. Think about how to really develop a creative approach that brings together the content, the employer, and the community college, really building one ecosystem together. I hope that answers your question.
No, that's good. But there's flexibility to use the curriculum without using Coursera. I guess that's the main question I had.
The only way to access the curriculum is on Coursera.
Okay, and that's for the foreseeable future. That's the model.
Correct.
Okay. The other question I had is you use the phrase consortium of colleges. Now, I don't know if you meant to imply we have what we call regional consortiums throughout the state. We have a number of regions, and regional consortiums are collections of colleges. So it's coincidence, I wonder. But anyhow, they are also the centralized point of funding for what we call strong workforce funds. And so it would be really convenient in that consortium model you're describing there, if we could have kind of a template of what the costs might be or how they might expand or contract, because we really do not have a shortage of funds right now. We are doing what we have a shortage of is clearly outline detailed implementation plans. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we can get what I would call a business plan, another lifestyle, whenever we can get things clearly done like that, and we have a record of success somewhere else, it's a pretty easy sell to these 10 or 8 or 10 different consortium that, hey, we need X amount of dollars, this is the success rate, this is what will happen, here's how you do it, and follow steps 1 through 28, and you're there. And here's all the partners already pre-built into this. That's an easy sell. So we might want to talk about that. And I don't know if you have any templates like that already.
So I will flag that for Mara and for JFF to follow up.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's pretty much what I wanted to get rid of right away. I'm sure we have a lot of people out here that are asking questions. Can you see the chat box?
Yes, I'm just looking at them right now because my screen was shared before. So I'm going through here. If our college currently has a help desk certificate, how can we change over to the Google IT support certificate curriculum? Does this certificate, to your knowledge, meet regional accreditation requirements? So I can't speak specifically to the second question. I don't want to misrepresent anything. In terms of changing over the curriculum, that's something that an individual college can decide on its own. So there are some community colleges that have decided they want to do this. They've looked at this curriculum, they've mapped it to what they currently offer, and they've decided at their college level that that's a decision they want to make. So that's really on a case-by-case basis. I see another question here. What CompTIA content are you partnering with? Thank you, Richard, for adding an answer there that there's a connection to A+, Net+, and Security+. How this content will be included into Canvas. So I think that's a question about LMS integration. This is a question from Mario. There have been a lot of efforts to make the LMS integration seamless that have rolled out actually pretty recently, so that should no longer be a concern. Okay, here. Are there course instructors with Coursera, or do we have to hire instructors to teach the course? So what's on Coursera is just the courses itself. There's not a live instructor that comes with that. Again, as I mentioned before, different groups take their own approaches. So most community colleges have a facilitator or an instructor, depending on which model they choose, who is there in person to either provide instruction in a completely in-person model, to provide office hours, so things like more hands-on practicing the skills that they've learned from the virtual labs that are in the course. Whether or not that instructor is a subject matter expert is really up to the school's decision. So there are some providers who have someone who has gone through all the content themselves, really is able to answer nitty-gritty questions, and others take the approach of having someone who's really a master at facilitation, so being able to bring together a group and have the learners learn from each other. So there are, again, it's really not a one-size-fits-all model because each school is so different. So the short answer is that no, there are not live instructors as part of this package, but there are instructors with each course, and those are Googlers themselves who are teaching.
If I may, I believe Richard Grotegut was very successful in taking the curriculum and integrating it into existing courses. And that slide earlier in the slide deck that showed the mapping to the IT model curriculum was, I believe, an example of where it fit in. And so if you're already offering those courses, it can be integrated fairly easily.
Right.
I know he's on the call, but traveling.
Okay.
And when with the JFF involvement and everything, and there's the completer community and the employer engagement. I mean, obviously you can go online, you can take a course, but more of the I don't know if it's proper to call it case management, but the hand holding and everything else. Does that occur through JFF and these other like the training for resume writing and everything else? How does that become an ancillary service to the curriculum?
Sure. So JFF is really important in terms of finding that implementation model, getting the contracting done, getting everything up and running. The things like the interview prep, resume prep, those are all built into the course itself. So whether someone went to Coursera and signed up for the program on their own or is taking it through their community college, they'd have access to all of that regardless of the grant support.
Okay. Good.
And one other thing to note, in case folks aren't familiar with Coursera, so the reason why there's a fee attached to courses on there, anyone can go in and audit a course, but you're not going to get any type of certificate at the end to prove that you've completed it. So that fee gives you access to the graded assignments and then the certificate at the end. So that's a question that comes up pretty often, probably for all Coursera courses, not just this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Looking at
Here.
questions here again.
What does the combo Google CompTIA badge look like? I don't have that in the presentation, but it has both. It has the Google and the CompTIA logos together.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I saw it in the other presentation. It looks good. What was interesting comment that was made is that CompTIA A+ is well known, and we highly recommend that for people who are just getting started. Yeah, Google to it. It adds a lot more value, but when you're doing your LinkedIn profile, the understanding I heard is make sure you mention the Google IT certification separate from, in addition to putting the badge there, because the branding of Google is just so powerful that a lot of people are just looking at this certificate or this training as something that's going to bring them, some sort of the Google aura, and that's a good thing for our students. That's great. We want that. So the students are encouraged to put all that information on their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting too that the relationship that we have with CompTIA is really quite nice. So they point to this certificate as really the best in class preparation for their courses, for their exams, and then we point to the exams as the next step to take once you've completed the certificate.
Yeah, that was a very wise alliance.
I see a question here. Can we have access to the courses to review? Yes, if you are thinking about offering this and you would like to get admin access or trial access to see what it looks like, you can send me an email with your first and last name. And you need to just create a Coursera account first. So just send me your first and last name and the email address you used on Coursera. And I'll put my email address in the chat box here so you can have it.
And also, yeah, previously you announced that open office hours for, was it Mara at, is it a WebEx on Thursday?
Yes, so that's on March 5th, I believe. Yeah, and if everyone has access to this presentation, you'll have that in there as well.
No,
I can copy it into the chat box here.
and as Nicole's reminding, we'll post the slides, we'll post the links, we'll post the video, it'll be broken down, and the entire transcript of the discussion.
Great. Any other questions? Have students had issues with Quick Labs for the labs? There are always technical issues that come up. There are quite a few ways to go about that. So there's a chat for online help, there's references to Quick Labs, and then by working with JFF, you also have a point of contact that can help you resolve issues there as well.
So my understanding from Mara, there's the 2 colleges that currently have this in place in the California community college system, but we're looking at about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's looks like about 10 others that are planning on doing it. About 6 of them ready to do it in the fall. So we're really gaining rapidly in the California community college system.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I've had college presidents call me up and say, Steve, how do I get this? So, and they hear about it, and once again, I get back to the branding is important, and it helps. We've had courses for a long time. Our IT model curriculum is very good and very rigorous and excellent training device. But people don't come home from talking to their friends at the mall saying, I just got to take that IT model curriculum at the community college system. And so branding and blending and combining are all things we need to recognize as part of our challenge in the community colleges in order to market and to reach new students and to get completers. So we're more than happy to partner and help this thing work. Any more questions out here?
I see here, how many hours of instruction does this comprise? I can't remember the exact number of hours offhand. I can follow up with that by email, and if you want to send that around. We do have, I believe it's 100, I want to say it's 100, I don't want to misquote it, so I will follow up by email on that. In terms of hours for actual instruction, that a lot of that depends on whether you choose to have an in-person model, a blended learning model, or what the college chooses on that. How many students are completing the course outside of the community college system? I can follow up on that as well. I don't know that offhand.
How about the next steps? Are you guys looking at a continuation in a series here, or are you looking at a wider scope into other disciplines? This is great work you've done so far. I can't imagine you're just going to stop.
So I'm glad you asked that. So just about a month ago, we launched another certificate, which is called IT Automation with Python. So that's really a stackable certificate to this one and really a follow-on. So the goal is for that certificate to really target someone who's already gone through this first training in IT support or something similar. So having that basic level of understanding that you can get through this certificate about IT support, and then that certificate in Python takes you to the next level, so that once you've landed the job, now that certificate can help you advance in the job.
It's terrific. All righty. Well, I'm looking for more questions. I'm not seeing anything that hasn't already been covered, and I just want to once again wrap up and thank our speakers today, and I think the combined effort from Google and JFF, Mara and Ricky, the work that you've been doing is just excellent, and it's great because it's involvement for our community colleges to with the efforts you're doing. A friend of mine in this business said a long time ago, there's plenty of ignorance to go around, so we can all collaborate together, and no one has to be selfish or jealous about what they're doing, because we're working for the same things to get these students successfully perched into jobs, and we welcome the collaboration. So with that, I'm going to let it go. We're going to wrap this thing up, put the recording on our website, and get more information out to everybody. And if there's a follow-up needed later on implementations or different strategies, we'll take a look at that in about 6 months and see if we can do that.
Great, and just very quickly, thank you so much for including us and inviting us to talk today. And really thank you to everyone for all of the work that you're doing across the state. It's really impressive and really so important. And we, from both JFF and Google, really appreciate everything that you're doing.
You bet. Thank you. All right, everybody. Goodbye. See you next Friday, 10 a.m. All right.
Bye.
Bye.